Bienvenidos, aloha, and welcome into Sunset Rewind. I'm your host, Alex Crawford. Alongside me, as always, former Oregon State tight end Howard Kroom. Game number 2 in the Sunset League goes 5-1. 4 of those wins coming decisively, a combined score of 176-33 in those 4 big wins for the Sunset League. Howard, I don't want to waste any time. Let's get right to it. Let's run through these games and recap what happened in the Sunset League on Thursday and Friday, starting off with the Corona Del Mar Sea Kings. They moved to 2-0, and David Razor in the first quarter. I wish I had him on my Sunset League fantasy football team. 5 first-quarter touchdown passes, then they pull him. The Sea Kings cruise to the victory. Howard, how good is David Razor?
Well, you know I'm high on David Razor. I had him, I shoehorned him into my top 3 Sunset League quarterbacks because I love what he did as a sophomore, just as a young guy, and he's picked up right where he left off last year. 5 first-quarter touchdowns, as you said, found 3 different receivers, looked absolutely comfortable, looked dominant, 9 for 12. That's the kind of performance you want out of your starting quarterback, and it's this early in the season. Again, didn't have a spring, didn't have a summer coming into last year, so he's just really just getting his footing as a quarterback and already looking elite. But one thing we have to talk about, in addition to David Razor, we have to find a way to talk about these wide receivers who we maybe didn't give enough love coming into the season, but they've made us take notice, and we know what they have at this point.
I'm guilty of that for sure, not giving enough love to the Sea King wide receivers. Our reporter, Chris Babona, caught up with John Tipton after the game, who had the receiving hat trick.
How'd you feel in that first quarter?
Yeah, offense is great. We had a lot of good plays run up this week for wideouts, all the wideouts, and it was nice to find the end zone 3 times, like you said, in the first quarter.
John Tipton, just a dominant performance. Anytime you have 3 touchdowns in a game, you feel like you lit the world on fire. He had 3 touchdowns in 1 quarter. In addition to John Tipton, we got to show love to Max Lane and Cooper Hoke, 2 guys that have been lighting it up, first game and second game. This receiving core as a whole, they're very strong. Like I said, we didn't have them on our top receiving core in the Sunset League coming into the season. Now, we're catapulting them up somewhere near the top. These 3 receivers are dynamic. They're great options for David Razor, and you supplement that with Evan Sanders, the running back all-league last year, who we haven't seen yet. Colin Pinay, who's looked absolutely excellent filling in for Sanders this year. This offense has looked great, and it's all made possible by the strong play on the offensive line. So this Corona Del Mar team, they're putting us on notice, and I've been saying in our text over the last few days, Alex, we got to start putting them on the list for Sunset League contenders.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're just talking about who performed well for Corona Del Mar. You list every position group on the offensive side of the ball. I know you want to give love to the defense, but it's just, my question is, how good is CDM? They're dominant right now. I can't wait to see them face a good team. Not that the teams they faced have been bad, but a worthy opponent. And I can't wait to see what the Sea Kings do when we get into Sunset League play.
Well, we know Sunset League play, we're finally going to see that step up in competition. And, I mean, all of that beautiful offensive play, that high-scoring first quarter, it was made possible by the defensive plays. Lots of turnovers. Jake Simpkins and Blake Stern, they had 2 big interceptions that ended up leading to points for the Sea Kings. Charlie Mannon, he had a big fumble recovery. Jaden Rosenhain, he also did. Nathan Bloom. These are guys that came up with big, timely plays for their team and allowed the offense to be as dominant as they were and get the starters out in the first quarter.
Absolutely. We look forward to seeing just how good the Sea Kings are this season. Let's go to the team that you picked as your Sunset League champion, the Edison Chargers. They bounced back in a big way against Clovis North, 35-13. Chargers move to 1-1 on the season, and it was the Troy Fletcher show for Edison on Friday night. He looked like the Sunset League running back of the year with 5 touchdowns on the ground for Edison. Here's Troy Fletcher after the game with our reporter Jonathan Ortiz.
Troy, talk about your performance today. What made you so dominant out there?
Just got to give credit to the linemen, They dominated up front. They really opened up the holes, and I just kind of did my thing, But got to give credit to the linemen.
Everything that Edison did on offense started with Troy Fletcher. He set the tone. His hard running averaged about 10 yards a carry. Really, really dominant. That was made possible by the Edison offensive line. They felt a little rocky in week 1 versus Servite, but this week showed how strong they could be. They can create big holes for Troy Fletcher, and that was complemented by Nico Brown having a huge night in the receiving game. Had big gash plays against the defense. A catch of 60 yards, had a 40-yarder, a 27-yard catch. All plays that, while you're trying to stop the run as the defense, then you're getting beat over the top for big chunk plays. That hurts. He ended up with 8 catches for 160 yards. Parker Awad, we know we've been waiting to see him get going. This is his second game as the starter for Edison. He was 14 for 20, was over 200 yards. So this is a game that gave Edison some confidence. As you said, I picked Edison to finish at the top of the league this year. So I have a lot of faith in them. And this is a game that gets Edison back on track and should set the tone for the rest of their season because we know they've got some big competition ahead of them.
Yeah, they're taking on Orange Lutheran this next week, so right back up against a Trinity League foe. But I have a question for you, Howard, because I'm still confused. I don't know who Edison is. I didn't expect them to be a team that ran the ball the way they did. We didn't know Troy Fletcher could run like that. I don't know Edison's identity yet. They got beat down by one of the best teams in the state, Servite, week 1. They come back week 2. And dominate in a way that we didn't expect. So my question is, who is Edison? Who are the Chargers?
Well, I think the Chargers are a team, they're still trying to figure that out. You know, internally, I think they know what their identity is, but they're still waiting to show that to the world. Like you said, week 1 was rough, but week 2 was really strong. And we expected Edison to be a passing team, you know, a heavy.
Exactly.
We love their wide receiving core. I think you had Edison as, you know, one of the top receiving cores in the league. So, but to come out and pound the rock to Troy Fletcher, he tied a school record with 5 touchdowns on the ground. So I think Edison is a team that's still trying to find their way offensively, and they're going to really have a test this week, and they're going to answer some of those questions and tell us who they are and if they can sustain what we saw this week as they take that step up in competition against a Trinity League opponent.
Huntington Beach bounced back as well. They moved to 1-1 with a 41-0 shutout of the Western Pioneers. AJ Perez, this is the AJP we expected to see this season. 2 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns. We know the senior quarterback had a lot of hype, some of it from us, some of it from Dan Albano, OC Varsity, and had kind of a quiet week in week 1. Good showing by AJ Perez here in the second game of the season. I was impressed by his performance and by the Oilers' shutout. What an all-around dominant game by Huntington Beach.
Yeah, you've been singing AJ Perez. You've been singing his praises throughout the offseason. In the first game, we were a little bit disappointed in NHB's performance. We thought they'd be more dynamic on offense. They kind of stalled out towards the middle and end of the game. So this week, it was a comeback game. Last week, Brett Brown told us the loss in week 1 might be a blessing in disguise. It's going to kind of humble us a little bit, have us get back to work, not believe the media clips. AJ Perez looked dominant. You, Alex, picked him as a dark horse MVP for the Sunset League. He showed why you picked him for that this week. 4 touchdowns, 2 of them on the ground, 2 of them through the air. He hit different receivers, had a 75-yard touchdown pass to AJ Vandermeid. He looked really, really good, and I'm confident that Huntington Beach is going to fall into the role that we predicted them to be this year, and that's a team that fights for the top half of Sunset League and looks to upset some of the opponents at the top half of the league.
Well, AJ Perez talked to our reporter Eric Ramos after the game about what this win meant for the Oilers.
We really practice this, and that's what we've been saying all week long. We need this. This is a big game for us because, you know, 0-2 start would be bad for us. So this is a great bounce back win, and I'm excited about it.
AJ Perez understands how important this win is for his team. You know, it was a team that came in with expectations. So for them to drop week 1 and come back week 2, now they can feel like this is the Huntington Beach Oiler team you're going to see the rest of the year. 41 points on offense, that's amazing. And we can't leave out the 0 on the other side. Defense pitched a shutout for 4 quarters, even gave the offense 6 points on an interception return for a touchdown by Nate Tawanu'u. Really dynamic junior. He's going to be a big player in the Sunset League for the next couple of years. And the defense as a whole put up big numbers, did what they were supposed to do, got a couple of takeaways. There were 3 interceptions. Jordan Castro had one, Eli Anderson, and Nate Tawanu'u, as I said, returned a pick for 6 points. There were 8 sacks, 3.5 by Jeff Hagedorn. These are plays that are dominating. They define football games. And when your defense is wreaking that much havoc, bringing you the ball back as an offense, and then the offense is converting, everybody starts to feel the energy. Everybody starts to feel the confidence, and it builds, and that's how you get up to a 41-point win. So I expect to see Huntington Beach take a lot of pride and a lot of encouragement from this win and carry it on through the rest of their season.
Well, Howard, I'll ask you this because you're a guy that played big-time football, but to me it seemed, and I don't want to make excuses, but it seemed like some of these teams, maybe HB, maybe Newport Harbor, it seemed like they were sleepwalking a little bit in the first game of the season. And I know it was only 120 days since the COVID season, coming off of a weird season. It felt week 0, game 1 for some of these teams felt a little bit more like a scrimmage week than scrimmage week did. And I think HB, we'll talk about Newport in a minute, they're teams that they seemed like, okay, now this is the real version of that team. Can you comment on that at all? Teams kind of maybe sleepwalking through game one a little bit?
Yeah, well, like we said, it wasn't a normal spring, it wasn't a normal summer. So even though there was a spring season and we feel like we just played football, this is a whole new team. There's new guys filling new roles, and so it just takes, a couple of quarters sometimes to get the cobwebs out. Other games we saw fourth quarter teams started to really look like themselves. But I think with Huntington Beach specifically in week one, they're a team that was banged up. They got a little bit more healthy this week. They got Hideo Ray back. He's a big outlet for A.J. Perez. They got Trent Light, their left tackle, back. He's a huge leader and a big part of the pass blocking on the offensive line. So sometimes you just got to get healthy, and it takes a week until everything clicks. But I think that week and that time has come for Huntington Beach, and they're going to look like a well-oiled machine, as we expected, on offense for the rest of the season.
Well, they look to keep it rolling next week against your alma mater, Long Beach Wilson. I know you'll be a little bit torn in that game, so excited to recap that one after the Oilers take on your alma mater. Let's go down to the team that we call games for, Newport Harbor. They bounced back with a big win at home opener in Davidson Field against former Sunset League foe, the Marina Vikings. Final score there, 44-14. All three phases of the game were going right for Newport Harbor. Offense, defense, even special teams was amazing for the Sailors on Thursday night. But Howard, you and I were most impressed by the offensive line play, especially the play of number 70 senior Grayson Simon. Watch this play, long pass play to Cashin Henjum. Watch the blocking from Grayson Simon here. This is actually Howard and I on the call on TAR TV.
1 minute, 7 seconds on the clock. They get it to Cashin Henjum on the outside. So dangerous. Crossing the 40. Getting a beautiful block. Turning on the Jets down the sideline. What a block by Grayson Simon. Cashin Henjum tripped up inside the 10. Grayson Simon, the offensive lineman, running with him stride for stride.
I mean, just look at that effort by your 6'4", 250, 260-pound tackle. You don't get that kind of effort out of most guys, but Grayson Simon takes pride in what he does. He's going to get down the field. He's an athletic guy and doesn't give up on the play. You see him trying to get an extra push on the defender, just trying to get his body on the defender's body because it's important to him. His teammates, they feed off of that energy. I know Cashin Henjum appreciates it, and he's a special offensive tackle. That was the second screen play that we were jumping up and down off of his block. Early on, the first quarter, there was another one. Grayson Simon getting out in space. When you're a big man like that, it's hard to, one, get up and go. It's hard to break down and actually get a block. So that's impressive. I said on the call, somebody give this man a scholarship right now just for that kind of athleticism and motor. Because that's special stuff out of the offensive line.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch Grayson Simon play on Saturdays on the offensive line. What an impressive night for him and just all around for the Sailors. I know there's a lot of guys that you're going to talk about, but really all three phases of the game were firing on all cylinders. We saw all three quarterbacks take snaps and throw passes for the Sailors on Thursday.
Yeah, all three quarterbacks looked great. I loved what Nick Kim did. Nick Kim was dominant early. I think he had over 200 yards just in the first half. It was 38-0 by the time Nick Kim came out of the game. He hit Cashin Henjum early on for a 64-yard completion that wasn't a touchdown. 2 plays later, throws him a touchdown. So Nick Kim lit it up, made Cashin Henjum look like the star that we all know he is. Threw Cash the ball in different positions. Coach Lofthouse called for screens when Cashin was a single receiver. Sometimes threw him the ball over the middle, hit him on deep balls. So that was great versatility in the offense because we know teams are going to be keying on Cashin Henjum as the reigning Sunset League wide receiver of the year. But then on the other side, we saw Josiah Lamarque, another guy who looked really dominant. Josiah, he was a little bit banged up in week one. To me, from my eyes, he looked totally healthy. He was outrunning defenders, putting juke moves on guys, going up the sideline for long touchdowns. He looked elite. You know, we talked early on who are the best receiving corps in the Sunset League. There's a lot of good receivers out there, but this week, Cash and Josiah showed why Newport Harbor maybe has the best receiving duo in the league. Those two guys are special. Combined with Nick Kim and his experience and the versatility of Coach Lofthouse's offense, the Sailors, they're really tough, and they're putting pressure on a lot of defensive backfields.
I can't wait to watch throughout the season the storylines about the wide receivers unfold, because I know Edison, I know LoSal, I know CDM, I know Huntington Beach. I know every school would take issue with that, but I would take Cash and Josiah against anyone because they're young and they're proven. They're young and they're proven, which is a rarity. So Cash, 5 catches, 164 yards and a touchdown. And the Sailors, I want to ask you this. They take on a real tough foe, Jay Sarah out of the Trinity League this coming Thursday. What's it going to take for them to step up to that level of competition and maybe beat a Trinity League opponent?
Well, I think the most important thing for the Sailors facing the Trinity League opponent this week, it's a step up in competition. They're going to have to keep up their physicality. That's going to be huge for the Sailors. We're going to need a guy like Jacob Carlone, who stood out to us on the broadcast.
What a game he had, by the way.
I mean, he looked like a man amongst boys out there at times. I mean, I remember you, Alex, going crazy one time over some coverage that Jacob Carlone had. He was just smothering all over a receiver, but then the very next play, he's smacking the quarterback, knocking people off their feet, playing as physical as he can. So we're going to need to see that kind of energy out of the Sailors. It's going to take a huge effort by the offensive line, not just Grayson Simon, but everybody else, all the other guys who are an experienced group. They're a big group, and I'm confident that the Sailors are up for the challenge, but I think it's going to start with the physicality.
Let's go down to the 5th Sunset League team to get a win on Friday. The Los Alamitos Griffins had the closest game of any of the Sunset League winners, 21-17 over the Lincoln Hornets from San Diego. Los Al surprised they actually got tested. It was against the number 28 team in the state. But Howard, at halftime, and I was listening to the call of our friend Kent Bickel on Griffins Radio, I wrote in my notes, I literally wrote, Howard, talk me off the ledge. I'm scared for the other Sunset League teams when Los Al gets to league play. And then all of a sudden the Hornets come back. Did we learn, does Los Al have a weakness? What did we learn about Los Al this week? Is there a chance a Sunset League team could beat them, or did they just face a really good team in the Lincoln Hornets?
It's a good question. I'm going to be totally honest with you, Alex. I'm not ready to say Los Al has any weaknesses just yet. Yes, they were tested. Yes, the game was closer than maybe some people expected, but the reality is Lincoln is a really talented team. They came in ranked, I believe, number 28 in the state of California coming into the game, and they were ranked high for a reason. They have a receiver that's committed to the University of Oregon. There were at least 5 or 6 guys on their team that have big-time Division I offers. So the Lincoln football team is a team that comes in with an inordinate amount of talent. So I wouldn't be any old football teams just thinking, hey, if Lincoln tested Los Al and almost beat them, maybe we can too. But with that said, everybody is beatable. So don't think Los Al is just indestructible, but they're just a team that has athletes in abundance. I mean, it's ridiculous how many guys. They have 4 Division I receivers playing safety, playing cornerback at Division I levels. You know, they have one of the best quarterbacks in the country. So Malachi Nelson did what he was supposed to do. You know, he looked good. Didn't hit every ball that he wanted to, but he tucked the ball away and ran it at times, got first downs for his team. He was impressive. Alec Wills, first team All-Sunset League wide receiver from last year. He was as reliable as ever. It was a really dominant performance by Los Al in the first half, but in the second half, the offense just couldn't find their footing.
Well, I know, touchdowns from Los Al came from Alec Wills, Nigel Osborne, who had a great game, and then our favorite touchdown came from the lineman who's committed to Utah State, Adam Tomczyk. And here's our friend Kent Bickel on the call for Griffins Radio with that Tomczyk touchdown.
Howard set for the Griffins again. Play action fake. Toss out to the right side, complete! Touchdown, Griffins! Adam Tomczyk leaked out and caught his first touchdown as a Griffin.
Is that Adam Tomczyk or Mike Vrabel?
Well, you love to see a big man like that get a touchdown. We know that normally in real life, Adam Tomczyk is a terror on the defensive line. He's a guy that's committed to Utah State to play D-tackle, and he did what we expected him to do. There was pressure on the Lincoln quarterback all night. Couldn't get comfortable. That's why there was no touchdowns by Lincoln in the first half. So I got to shout out Adam Tomczyk, Shem Brennan. Brennan was everywhere, living in the quarterback's lap. He was either going downfield making tackles or in the backfield making tackles on the running back or quarterback. Also, tons of pressure from Zeph Misa. Achilles Campos Barrett did a great job, but also have to give a huge shout out to Brian Gerardo. Anytime the Los Alamitos Griffins needed a big play, it seemed like Brian Gerardo was the guy that came up with it. He had 2 big sacks on 3rd down. He forced a fumble, recovered a fumble, was just a Swiss Army knife out there for the Griffins. So big night from a lot of guys. And we didn't even mention, I kind of alluded to the defensive backs earlier, but DeAndre Moore did a great job. Ethan O'Connor, great job at safety. Isaiah Dorsey, just so many guys that were contributing, making their presence felt. Didn't even mention Mekhi Lemon. Big interception, was guarding a guy that's going to Oregon to play receiver. So that was a college matchup, Oklahoma versus Oregon. And Mekhi Lemon seemed to win that all night, in my opinion. I was so impressed with the way he played defense. So I'm not ready to say Los Al has any weaknesses, and I expect them to roll for the rest of the season.
Los Al has so many dudes on their team, I'm going to have to start putting a limit on the number of guys we can talk about in a segment, because we could talk about all 22 and then some. It's that impressive.
I told you earlier off air, I think they had 11 guys on their defense that are going to college.
It's crazy.
11 out of 11 going to college to play defense. They're just a talented team.
The road to the Sunset League Championship definitely still runs through Los Alamitos. Finally, the one team that came up with a mark in the loss column this week was the Fountain Valley Barons, 21-6. They fell to the El Dorado Hawks. It was another defensive battle. The defense did their best, but the offense didn't quite match the intensity in this one, and Coach David Gutierrez gets his first loss as the head coach of the Barons.
And I'm still encouraged, even though it's a first loss. We know Fountain Valley, no team's going to win every game for the most part, and Fountain Valley still has some learning to do. The offense didn't click the way that they expected, but there were some bright spots. We know Ben Pham had a second quarter touchdown. He carried the ball a lot for the Barons and did a good job doing it. They're working in some new personnel. We know they've got a new quarterback, Owen Tomko, who's looked confident. I think he's going to keep growing, keep getting better every week. And Coach Gutierrez has kind of taken them from a pass-heavy, more of a spread-out team to a physical style. So there's going to be a learning curve there, and one thing I expect to stay the same, though, is the defense. We know they've got Kane Elroy in the linebacker spot. He's a returning starter from last year. He's kind of the anchor of the defense. Coach Gutierrez looks for him to be physical, and that's exactly what we saw, only giving up one first-half touchdown did Fountain Valley. So the physicality was there. The discipline was there. Just got to find a couple of more plays on offense and a couple more ways to convert, and they'll end up getting over the hump eventually.
Yeah, I'm certainly still a believer in what Coach Gutierrez is doing at Fountain Valley. Like you said, creating a new identity, and you don't turn a team into a physical, blue-collar, hard-nosed football team overnight. That takes years, and it seems like the Barons are buying in right away. So it's a marathon, not a sprint, and I still have a lot of belief in what Coach is doing there.
Absolutely. As long as they keep playing hard, keep playing through the whistle, keep playing to the end, the rest is going to come. The positive yards, the first downs, and eventually the win column, it's going to come along too. They just have to stay the course and keep believing in what Coach Gutierrez is preaching, and we'll see the results very soon.
Well, Howard, we got something big to debut coming up very soon for Sunset Rewind. It is our website, sunsetrewind.com. Once that's live, I can't wait for everybody to check it out.
Absolutely. You'll be able to get all the game recaps. We'll house stats there. We'll have historical stuff for years to come. We'll always be able to come back and, find out what happened in week 2 of 2021. So really excited to debut that to everybody. And our website is powered by GoldenCom. If your website isn't working as hard as you need it to, or if you need some help with your website, call GoldenCom. They'll help you solve all your problems. And they're an excellent organization. Reach out.
And follow us on social media at sunset_rewind on Twitter and Instagram. We put clips from the show, interviews, etc. on there. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you've watched this far, you probably already subscribed to our YouTube channel, but subscribe. We got the full episodes on there. We got player interviews, coach interviews. So Sunset Rewind on YouTube. Howard, that does it for game number 2. The sun has set on the second set of games in the Sunset League, and we're rolling right along, learning about these teams. I'm excited for game number 3.
Can't wait till game 3. There's some big games in Sunset League, a couple of Trinity League matchups, so we'll get to really see our skills from the Sunset League perspective challenged, and can't wait to come back next week and recap everything.
For all of our viewers, for our crew here at the Sunset Rewind Studios, for all of the parents, players, and coaches in the Sunset League, and for my broadcast partner, Howard Kroom, this is Alex Crawford saying, from Saddleback to the Pacific Ocean, from the 405 to PCH, you've been watching Sunset Rewind. Thanks for tuning in.